All right, what we've got on the screen here is Visual Studio Code. We're going to talk about how to make an amazing meeting agenda that actually works for you and your teams. So we've written this in Markdown, and the great thing is about Markdown, if you have something else to add to organize your thoughts quickly while you're typing, 3 is now D, and that header is already established. Markdown lets you do markup, or convert to other languages. So pick one language and then learn how to translate between them. I love Markdown. It's so close to so many other components in programming, and it's going to teach you how Visual Studio Code works. Again, we're going to have better meetings. And you see over here, when you work in Markdown, you can already see, do you have a clean organization of your thoughts and ideas? You can visualize on the right side of your screen, you can write on the left, and this helps you really build better everything. You have organized your thoughts in a way that works, right? Organizing your thoughts in a way that works. So it's that easy, and we see we can focus back and say, is this really what we want to do? There's not pop-ups, there's not distractions from other banners, things aren't moving around, it's not in React. It lets you just use your fingers instead of having to use a mouse. You can page up and page down to go quickly through ideas, so we can very quickly see if our code even makes sense. So what we're going to do now is we're going to visualize this, because I think that's really, really important here. Actually, before we visualize it, I want to show you one other thing. One other tool I love for using Visual Studio Code to see if your thoughts are in order, if your program is going to make sense, if your project is going to make sense, what does it look like? Because when you start writing here, this is how you develop code. You have to first put your thoughts into a system, and you have to continuously improve, and that lets you to move on to continuous deployment. So we're going to open this in MarkMap. Now, MarkMap is a wonderful tool because it lets you visualize your dependency chains. Now, if you think about automation and systems and components and building systems and components, you have to engineer them out, and you have to have an understanding of how they have dependencies on each other, because when you understand that relationship, you can tell the computer how these pieces of information are connected. I have a video on troubleshooting. I think you should go check that out. So it takes this idea and then focuses on troubleshooting. So when you watch that video, you can have a good meeting agenda about troubleshooting. So we've got this visualization of what we've been writing, and we can even add new things in here and see, does it make sense of where we're organizing our thoughts? Isn't that great? Does this fit? So does this make sense? And this lets you move your file structure in one place, and you don't have to worry about how do I navigate from here or there. Your home, end, page up, and page down keys work, so you can just click through what you're trying to do. Computer systems shouldn't be that difficult to use, so we're going to exit those out. There's lots of cool functions inside of MarkMap. Learn about them, learn how to build good dependency trees. This tells you how to structure better meetings. And I want to now go to what I was going to show you the first time. Let's open this up. So on your computer, this is Command, Shift, and P to open this contextual menu, right? Command, Shift, and P if you're on a Mac. I think it's Control, Shift, and P on a Windows machine. I could be wrong. So we're going to open this up, and now we've done another great thing to see, are we making sense of what we've put together? So on the left side here, we've got the meeting agenda, and then the meeting agenda let me create a graph. And then I also got this in an HTML page, which was the graph output from the mind map or marked map. So I've lost my way on what I'm trying to show you. Let me stick right back to the script. This lets us visualize our meeting agenda. And it makes sure, did you put into the computer system thoughts that the computer could understand? And can the computer graph those thoughts? Because they're very powerful machines. And they're very powerful calculators. So if you tell it how to reference a point of data, it can figure out how to get there. So we've got our introduction. Well, does that make sense? We've got a review of previous action items. So we started with this. We did some processing in the mermaid language, and I will give an exercise about how to create these flows, right? We built our dependency. And, you could put this up in your meeting, and conclusion depends on the next steps and action items, right? And the next action items depend on this, and it depends on these, and it depends on this, and it depends on the introduction. So now we see, did we build good dependencies? And we could reference this code now, right? We could point something to where conclusion is. Sorry, what am I trying to? Sorry. So we can actually start to point to a point in our data structure, in our file hierarchy, right? And the rest of this standardized file structure exists. Go click on home page to get started. Read it. You can put all of the system components together. It will teach you how to start with Visual Studio Code. It will teach you how to structure your information to fit into a SQL database. It will structure your information to effectively do and use systems in your business. That's what this is. This operationalizes the business systems you use. So then we've got our state diagram. This is important because the computer needs to understand the state of the information and how it's going to access that information. And then we've got our host journey class diagram. You could make a journey diagram for anybody else, right? I wrote this for the host, but take your time and make one for a guest, make one for a third party, make one for somebody else, and challenge yourself to, you already have the structure, and then you can do the relationship mapping that you need to do on the computer systems that you're using. And you can see here, we've got the structure of the file to the left side, right? So we're starting with a class diagram and the introduction, and that visualizes like this. So you can see the code you're writing, and you can see the outcome of the code. And you already know that you have something that's going to start to be a functional program for what you're doing. And you can write it in something as simple as Markdown. It's not difficult to come up with classes inside of software programming. And there's tools to start it. And it starts with a good meeting agenda. Ask better questions. We've got our technical discussions. We've got our next steps. And then, again, we've got the state diagram going in the other way. And you could come here and build entity relationship mapping. And it's something I gotta work on, but it's not. It's just not ready right now. And it's such a great way to effectively use computer systems. And we can also come back here. We can open up this tree, right? If we're trying to visualize our thought process, don't overcomplicate using computer systems. They can do very advanced things. And we've got the program structure, right? What does our state diagram look like? Oh, well, this is math. We can start to point to things. Computers are math systems, so we can define our dependencies here, and we can start to reverse engineer what we are doing, right? So we see what our visualizing meeting agenda is. And we've got our graph. So when we need to reference something, we see what it looks like. We can also probably start to put these as we are calling other references in our software, right? We see 3 is contained inside of these brackets. So that's it. That's 10 minutes to using Visual Studio Code to have better meetings and use computer systems to take notes. Because if you don't use computer systems to take notes, you're doing it the hard way.